What's going on, everyone? So today is the first showdown of the Battle of LA, Lakers versus the Clippers. Now, it's early. There's no word on whether Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden are going to play in this game against the Lakers. Ty Lue did kind of mention that it's very likely that they play because they are coming off of a back-to-back against the Orlando Magic. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have been very frail, very fragile, and they usually like to rest some of these guys. Maybe they play like Paul George and sit Kawhi. Time will tell. We will see. But to me, today is an important game regardless, right? For a multitude of reasons. One, the Clippers have beaten us 11 straight times, right? And sometimes there are teams that just have your number, no matter what. Right? It's just weird, right? Like in all sports, you see teams that, look at like the Commanders with the Philadelphia Eagles, and you just see the Lakers with the Clippers, and it's just like no matter how good we are, no matter, if it's a year we're winning a championship, if it's whatever, it's just some teams just seem to have that number. And the Clippers have a lot of motivation, right? They've been little brother for so long. They haven't really done anything, right? They've been a one conference finals. It doesn't mean that, that's it. No, it's just silliness. But to them, playing the Lakers, that's their Super Bowl, right? If we beat the Lakers, in the Lakers, to them, it's like, okay, yeah, we want to get this win. We need to get this win, but it's not as big of a spectacle as it is for the Clippers. But the problem is a couple things, right? One, you want to change the narrative. Right? This year is supposed to be a different year. The Lakers have gotten off to not the best start, not the start that many believed that they would, myself included, right? I expected them not necessarily to be off to the races and just dominating through everything, but I expected them to be a lot more a little more, not a lot more, but a little more fluid than they have been, right? To me, it's kind of, the frustration for me is the lack of energy to start games. Right? It's just dude, what is going on here, right? You have all this talent, all this depth, all this versatility. They're not hitting shots. And to me, it's a bit of a concern, but I'm not that concerned about them not hitting shots because eventually the law of average is going to work out. Guys are going to start hitting shots and things will start flowing better, but it's just the energy, right? There's other things you can do when the offense isn't flowing the way you want it to. You can put the energy into the defensive side. You can lock down, you can chase down loose balls, grab rebounds, do the little things, right? And that goes a long way. And some of these games might have not have been as close as they were. And you might have not have lost some of the games that you did, especially against Sacramento, which is a game you should have won. But another big reason why I think this game is important is you're playing a division rival. You already lost to Sacramento. You don't want to lose to the Clippers. These type of games are the games that decide playoff seeding and stuff, right? Right now the Clippers are 3-1, right? You're 2-2. You need to get this win because now both of you are 3-2, and now you both have, or now you have the tiebreaker so far. If it starts getting, it's about establishing those roots throughout the course of the season. Right after the Sacramento game, one of the things that I talked about was I hope that this isn't the game that we look back and go, man, we really needed that win because of seeding or just whatever. Right? I'm not worried about the Lakers making the playoffs. I'm not worried about the Lakers, being and figuring it out throughout the course of the season. I definitely think we will. But it's just you need to win and establish again these roots that are so significant for seeding and just, how the type of rest you get towards the end of the season, all of those things, right? And the Clippers, they're fully charged, right? They go and trade for James Harden. Now, I'm not super high on the Clippers with James Harden. It definitely makes them better, but I don't think it makes them that much better, right? ESPN and stuff like that, they have the Clippers as the number one team in the league, highest percentage win. It's so silly to me. To me, it's just they added the name of James Harden, and some people are taking that as like this is, 2017, 2018 James Harden. And it's not, right? This is not the same James Harden it was 5-6 years ago, right? This is a very good James Harden still. It's a James Harden that can make plays, and the Clippers needed a playmaker, right? The Clippers needed that guy. I do think James Harden makes them a lot better during the regular season, just because, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they're going to miss very likely a ton of games. And on top of them missing a ton of games, even the games that they do play, James Harden is going to be able to take off a lot of the burden. Plus, James Harden is still, he's still a 20-12 guy, 20-10 guy, right? So he's a guy that, can make plays and still score the basketball throughout the course of the regular season. But the Clippers, again, are one of those teams that I just don't buy until they prove to me otherwise. Every year, the last 10 years, it's been the Clippers' year. Every year, the Clippers are the best team. You hear all of the media, you see all the betting odds, you see everything about how the Clippers are this, that, and the other. And every year, they do nothing. They're a second-round exit, right? Or they miss the playoffs because Kawhi and Paul George are hurt. Or they're a play-in team because Kawhi and Paul George are hurt. Or whatever. And it's just, why would I think anything otherwise? Like, why would I assume that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard won't be hurt come the playoffs when that's the case more times than it's not? Why would I assume that James Harden is going to show up in the playoffs when more times than not, it's been the opposite, right? Like, don't get me wrong. If we're being honest, the Clippers, if they can figure it out, work it out, and all things kind of click, the Clippers would be tough, right? And there's no question that there is the potential of them hoisting the Larry O'Brien, right? Even without James Harden, you could have still made that argument because they are a good team. But now I also have questions about their depth. And one of the big reasons that they matched up so well against the Lakers is because they had so many perimeter guys that could match up with LeBron. And much like how I've talked about, with, like certain matchups, like, you need to get bigs to like wear down Jokic over a series, or you need, X, Y, and Z, like back in 2020, you had JaVale, you had Dwight, you had AD, right? Like you were wearing guys down, like in the Kevin Durant, when we just played the Phoenix Suns, right? Kevin Durant got burnt out and he got tired towards the end of the game, and then he couldn't hit shots. And it's because the Lakers were throwing, Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish, you're throwing Christian Wood, Anthony Davis guarded him a couple times, right? You're just throwing these bodies at guys, and Kevin Durant is one person, and we have 10 to throw at him. Well, the Clippers had that too, right? Like, they had Kawhi Leonard, they had Paul George, they had Covington, they had Batum, they had Morris, right? They had these guys, these just big, sizable, physical bodies that you could throw at, LeBron James, that were bigger than most of the guys we had on our team. They were bigger than us the last few years. And then it was like, okay, well, this year, now we finally have that size that can match up with the Clippers and now be comparable in that regard. And, we have the help to where they can't just keep throwing everybody at LeBron because now they have to worry about everyone else. But then the Clippers went and traded all of that away, and I've seen people, try to make the argument that like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it'll be fine. They still have a bunch of size and yada, yada, yada. But there's a big difference between like Coffee and, Brown and, what's his name? Debates or Diabates, right? Like, there's big difference between those guys and veteran guys that have the experience, that have been there and done that on a championship caliber roster, that have the experience of guarding a LeBron James and are familiar with the way he goes and approaches things, or are familiar with guarding, various defenders in the league, a Kevin Durant, a whomever, right? And there's a big difference between those veteran guys that can show up in big moments, that aren't afraid of the moment, that have hit big shots, that have done things, and people have talked, oh, Covington, he's been out of the rotation. He just started because of X, Y, and Z. Like, well, he's still starting. He's still playing big minutes, and he's done it for the last several years. Marcus Morris has been big for them on numerous occasions. I understand people want to justify and try to, because everybody does it, right? Everyone that's a fan of their team, they try to justify for X, Y, and Z, right? But the reality is, the Clippers are not, they're still, don't get me wrong, they still have depth and talent, right? You have a starting five of, Russ, Harden, Kawhi, Paul George, and Zoo. And then they still have Highland, Powell, Plumlee, right? Terrence Mann, Coffee. They still have depth, but how does their defense look? They now don't have as much size as they once did. This isn't the same team. And now you're relying even more on Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and James Harden, which, if you didn't have the history that you had, it would be fine. But now you do have the history that you have. You do have Kawhi and Paul George missing lots of basketball. You do have James Harden completely disappearing in the playoffs, and he hasn't been a huge model of health lately, right? And it's like, if any of these guys miss, Clippers are in big trouble. Big trouble. So I don't really know how I feel, but I think from the Lakers standpoint, whether everyone plays or not, you got to get this win. Need to change that narrative, right? Because, and look, if they lose, it's not the be-all, end-all, right? I don't think it's as big of a deal, but the world will, right? The conversation, the media, all of that will be, Lakers still can't beat the Clippers. Clippers just beat them 12 times. Lakers are in panic mode. Lakers are blah, 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 blah. Lakers fall to 2 and 3. They can't get over the... It's going to be all this narrative that's just... You want to change that. You got a young team, a young roster. You want to build that momentum. You want to build that just hype and excitement for the course of the season. You want to go, and especially if James Harden and everybody's playing, right? Clipper fans will try to justify it and, oh yeah, they just got together and all that stuff. But if the Lakers lost, they would have been talking about the opposite, right? But at least the overall general narrative is Lakers finally beat the Clippers, and then let them start dealing with the headaches, right? Let that narrative flip a little bit there. Lakers need to go in and do their job, right? I think that this game is important for a number of reasons. I don't think it's an absolute must win, right? But I do think this is a very important game. One, for the narrative, and two, just to kind of get that monkey off your back, right? And then three, I think you need it for just potential seeding at some point. You need to win those division games, those conference games, right? Losing to Sacramento, it hurts, right? But losing to a team if you lose to an Orlando or whatever, that's fine. Beating the Suns is huge, right? But losing to Milwaukee is not that big of a deal, right? It's just there's certain matchups that are more important than others for numerous reasons, and I think that this is one of them. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you think that this is a must-win for the Lakers? Do you think it's not? Do you think, it's important? It is important to win this game, but it's not an absolute must-win. However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below.